gentlemen, I'm Monica Listi, CEO of Martel Innovate and also Director of the Next Generation Internet Outreach Office. And this morning in this rather short session, we will concentrate on a couple of aspects that concern this initiative that was launched 3 years ago from the European Commission. Now, you might all be, or some of you might be familiar with the fact that there is a lot of accent on the fact that the internet, which makes so much part of our lives, has to be more respectful of human rights and of values that we put forward, especially in Europe. And this is what is driving the next generation internet, a vision of an internet of humans, meaning putting the humans' needs and rights at the center. Now, this initiative that was launched, as I said, in end of 2016, beginning of 2017 by the European Commission, has been growing as a community of researchers, innovators, policymakers, but also civil society players that are interested in and committed to build a better internet. Now, a short outlook. The European Commission has already invested within Horizon 2020 about 250 million euros on several aspects: personal data protection, privacy and securing mechanisms, combating disinformation online, guarantee access and freedom of choice, respect fundamental rights, and enforce ethics and sustainability by design. This is all revolving around this idea that we need to reshape, rethink, re-engineer in a way the internet and make sure that it's a trusted, secure, and inclusive framework, given that so much of our everyday life, especially in these extreme pandemic conditions, goes via the internet. Now, in particular, one of the peculiarities of this initiative is that a big portion of the grant of the EC funding goes via so-called cascade funding mechanisms to third-party innovators. So there are NGI projects that have part of their budget allocated to fund third-party newcomers. About 80% of the budget of some selected RIAs goes to this activity. Then there are a number of other projects that are so-called coordination and support action that help the community, help the project, but also help to engage newcomers on board. And in particular, there's also a couple of those coordination and support actions that are dedicated to outreach, community building and dissemination, but also policy and strategic programming, so road mapping, and also collaboration in particular with the United States initiative. Now, here you can see an overview of the projects in the website, the ngi.eu portal. Under projects, you will find more detail about each of them. These are the currently ongoing ones. I won't enter into very much details because we don't have that much time, but eventually you can find more information offline. What I wanted to say is the specific areas that are covered, because maybe you can find that your research, your activity, your work is fitting into these topic areas, and you can take the opportunity to participate to these NGI open calls and apply for funding. Fed for Fire, in particular, offer a federated testbed for experimentation. There are several testbeds that are open for running experiments. Then there are a couple of projects that are more focusing on data governance, data protection, data security aspects. Then we have a couple of projects on privacy and trust enhancing mechanisms. Then we have a dedicated project to search and discovery technologies. And when I say one dedicated project, in fact, you have a number of third-party innovators that can join, that have already joined and applied. Then we have data portability and services with DAPSI. We have self-sovereign identity. Then we have one project, NGI Pointer, that provides supports and funding to rethink the architecture of the old web and of the internet in a decentralized and secure manner. Then we have blockchain-based knowledge management, and finally trust and reputation models, again with blockchain and digital ledger, DLT technologies behind. So you might find a good fit, and you might find a good opportunity. So now, the other actions might also be of your interest, because in fact, if you have activities that fit into the concept, into the overall vision of NGI, you should be able to promote and join the community so that you can amplify also the outreach of your work. We have here a few ones. In particular, some are dedicated to this EU-US collaboration, but also we have NGI Forward that is setting out a strategy as well as a policy and research agenda. We'll tell you a little bit more later on today. And NGI, that is a business acceleration support. So there are mentoring and acceleration services that are offered by this project to the third-party applicants. So essentially, if you apply for one of those grants that are offered by the NGI projects, that can vary. Some are smaller, like 10, 15,000 euros. Some go from 50 to 150,000 euros. And you can be also a loan to apply to these calls, and all the rules are the cascade funding rules established by Horizon 2020. We have a dedicated page on the portal where you can find information, and you can of course contact people in the various projects to get more details. Now, now I told you what's the status quo. So 16 projects running, lots of applicants, third-party innovators that joined. Now, what comes next? Because of course, as you know, especially in this period of intense and let's say acceleration of the digital transformation of our society, of course, we're considering what is the role that the internet is playing in the bads and in the goods. So there's a number of open questions and big challenges that we are asked to face. In particular, one of the key documents that was released a couple of months ago, end of October, within the NGI context, is this a vision for the future internet working paper that you can find online via the NGI portal, in which basically there is a vision for 2030 internet that is an internet that is democratic, resilient, sustainable, trustworthy, and inclusive. And of course, there's several concrete challenges, not only technical, but also policy-related aspects, and let's say also societal and economic challenges. So, in particular, in today's discussion, we look a little bit more on sustainability aspects with our guest, Dr. Giovanni Remassa from Digital for Planet, that I will present you in a second. Now, I will, if you allow me, I will present these slides about how to join and how to get funded towards the end of our discussion, because we have only half an hour. And I would like to leave the floor to Giovanni. I would like Giovanni to introduce himself shortly and to share his screen, because we will focus on more digital sustainability aspect with him. I will also look at the questions that you might drop on the chat. So please, if you have questions, feel free to drop them online in this chat room. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Monique. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I just share my screen. So can you confirm that you see the presentation now on Digital for Planet, right? Very good. So welcome everyone to this session, and my name is Giovanni Remassa. I am the Vice President of the nonprofit organization Digital for Planet, and I will briefly introduce what we do and what is, let's say, our take on sustainable internet and greener data economy vision in connection exactly with the just published paper from the NGI initiative that Monique mentioned at the end of her presentation. So without further ado, we can start about Digital for Planet. We are a non-profit association, and our aim is to grow a network of interested parties, both organizations and individuals, to work together to promote, develop, and even assess and critique, so to speak, the technologies and the adoption processes that try to combine the digital transformation of society with the environmental sustainability goals that are basically a main priority of, I would say, the worldwide development, and particularly can be helped or hindered a great deal by how we decide to go about our digital transformation activities. So, if we think of the information and communication technology and in the context of sustainable development, we see that there are a lot of impact points because the digital technologies are everywhere and are growing, and they're getting more and more engaged in modifying how people approach problems, how people collaborate, how people do work in a variety of environment. However, what we can also see is that digital technologies, or rather their level of consumption itself, can be part of the problem in terms of environmental impact at large and sustainability of our mankind activities in general. So there are estimations already that can see that the ICT could consume 20% of the global electricity in just 5 years from now, and could generate already a significant part of the carbon dioxide emissions, due of course to the exponential increase of the number of connected devices, number of and size of data storage in the various data centers and so on. So technology, like everything else, has environmental impact and can damage the environment like just every other human activity, which means that there is nothing special, magic about digital processes or technologies, because ultimately they will have their physical counterparties. That's why we need an end-to-end approach. We have to consider also the mining for raw materials. We have to consider where the energy that is consumed by the computers come from, and so on. And without forgetting, unfortunately, the e-waste, because the, let's say, frantic innovation pace of technology also means that new stuff gets sold fast, and there is even explicit social pressure to consider technology, digital technology, quickly disposable, because there is always the next great thing behind the corner, and we have to just run along with the curve of development. And all this, of course, is part of a challenge to sustainability, because exponential growth and consumption and quick renewal are not necessarily easy to reconcile with sustainable goals. Of course, the digital technologies have a lot of positive points that can help in these sustainable development efforts. We are running this conference online, and this has beneficial aspects in terms of accessibility, less need for travel, and so on. But there are exactly these two pans of the scale that we have to think at the same time to have a combined approach to decide what to do in terms of balancing digital transformation and environmental footprint. Now, coming now to the NGI Vision for 2030 that is outlined in the paper that Monique mentioned at the end of her presentation. From, let's say, the Digital for Planet perspective, where we try to combine technology, competence, and vision with environmental awareness and end-to-end holistic analysis of all the factors that can contribute, this paper is very interesting because it sets 5 pillars of what we need in the next generation of future internet, of which 2 are important, are directly relevant for Digital for Planet interests, and these 2 are the resilience and sustainability. Resilience is important because we are trying to think in terms of ecology-inspired complex system thinking, and so we know that unexpected things will happen, so it's very important that a system like the internet can withstand unforeseen problems. So the resilience is important also in an environmental perspective, and sustainability obviously is important. The other 3 are more social-centered, so like democracy, trust, and inclusiveness. I will mention them later, but the focus for us at the moment as D4P is these 2, resilience and sustainability. Then, of course, the NGI people are network people, right? And network people, they like layers, so they like to define the networks in this kind of cake approach, and that's exactly what the paper does. You can see on the right, there are these 7 layers that are not the traditional 7 layers of computer networks, but they try to blend the technical stuff like physical infrastructure, protocols, and technology with the enhanced, expanded view of social impact, information, circulation in the society. And as you can expect, these pillars, these 2 that we are talking about, but also the others, they impact all the layers. So this raises challenges at every layer of the network, including the higher, non-technological, more social layer. So if we start top-bottom, at the societal impact, never mind how energy efficient or green energy, renewable energy powered our network is, we still have to cope with the fact that if the model of use of the network is to always have more data, more devices, more information, faster transmission rates, this is unsustainable most likely by itself, never mind the technology. So already at the social level, we have some challenges. We cannot keep on going with unsustainable consumerist approach that wants to grow the consumption of everything. If we start to go at the data layer, that is particularly relevant for this conference, then data, you know, in cloud systems, people say data at rest when it is in the servers and is not being transmitted on the network, but actually this data is at rest, but is not idle. So usually this also consumes power. So if you have large data because you never delete your digital pictures, or every company wants to keep customer information forever, apart from all the social and privacy implications, assuming that all this is agreed, this still has an unsustainable environmental impact in terms of the consumption of energy with servers. Then going down towards the more physical, technological a bit, internet standards traditionally have paid attention to resilience because the internet was born to be disaster tolerant, but sustainability is a newer concern. So in many cases, there are very well established and very highly functioning standards that don't take into account sustainability and energy footprint too much. Last but not least, also at the physical level, from a telecommunication point of view, there are challenges how to make the network resilient without exploding the impact, because if you duplicate nodes or you create multiple paths, this also, of course, requires more hardware, more network, more electricity, and so on. Good. The paper also mentions objectives for 2030. These are on the right side of the slide. And this already shows that the NGI Forward project that did this paper, they have a very wide view that they consider the also socioeconomic aspects here. So they propose to move to a fully circular economy model for devices, so that when you buy an electronic device, it will be embedded in the contract, how you're going to dispose of it, when you have to return it, you have to have the right to repair it, and so on. So these are a lot of proposals that try to really fix the problems at the society impact level, not yet at the technological level. Then, of course, there is also effort to reduce the energy usage of data and the economic process that data economy enables, as we were saying before. And in general, there is this ambition of Europe to become the global frontrunner for the green let's say, digital technology from devices, but also software and infrastructure. And of course, as was mentioned by Monique before, there is also the awareness of the need of investment plans to promote the right kind of technology for the important topics, main of which is, of course, climate change and climate crisis that we have now. Now, from Digital for Planet point of view, I would say that we are rather aligned, so we appreciate this kind of positioning from the NGI initiative and the European Commission itself. I have a couple of comments, maybe can also be interesting to discuss later. One thing is that from all these aspects, we have to face the reality that this self-image of digital things as being incorporeal, you know, it's information at your fingertips from Microsoft decades ago until now, cloud and serverless computing. So there is this continuous effort to push this delusion that when I do something digital, it's like in the spirit world. Whereas we know that it's not like this, and it has a strong environmental impact like railway or airplanes. So that's one thing that it's very important, I think, to push from a public perception point of view. Then all these problems, they cannot be divide and conquer, but they are systemic things that you have to address end to end. So also, let's say in ICT, the product vendor approach that we give you the little pill that solves the problem, this is also inadequate. What we need is more of a process, project, I don't know how you want to call it, approach for complex systems where you have to bring together a lot of different competences. That's why we need interdisciplinarity, but not only technical, also from a diversity of contributors. That's why in Digital for Planet, we try to bring together not only technical people and experts from academia, industry, and the small startups and SME, but also economics, organization, and social and political activism initiatives that are concerned with these issues. And last, as I said, there are 5 pillars. The other 3 are social and economical. This is very important, but is less a focus for D4P, even though, as I said, these problems are systemic. When you start to tackle big environmental impact problem, you also have to face the structure of the society and the economics that are related. But this is not per se our focus. Now, what are we doing now? Our ambition is to be part of the movement that is trying to bring about the important objective like carbon neutrality by 2050 and fighting climate change while it happens, and also to separate more the prosperity, let's say, improvement for mankind from the impact on the planet. So this is the planetary boundaries versus the social boundaries, donut economics kind of aspect. You can see on the figure some examples of messaging that we are currently advertising with our social media campaigns to also show people that just like they learned environmentally aware behaviors in their consumption of food, waste, and so on, it's the same you can do also in your digital life. You can do similar consumer behavior changes that can help, because everything a little bit adds up to a point. Good. At the moment, we are focusing on some topics that are relevant here: sustainable next generation networks, so both at the internet level, but more also at the telco level with 5G and beyond 5G network infrastructure. Green data center, that's another big topic, because there is also tension between economy of scale and environmental impact. So it's a little bit like in food, that the uncomfortable realization that high-intensive bred chicken is actually more environmentally sustainable than, you know, free range poultry. And this is the same. Small data centers are worse for environmental impact, but they are better for other things like privacy and avoiding accumulation of data. So this is an important topic as well. And last, also, we have interest in the smart and sustainable cities aspect, because cities are very important as a complex system that is growing and has to face this digital transformation and environmental awareness combined process. So I close with If you are at work on these topics for a greener internet, for more sustainable internet, please contact us and join us so that we can create a stronger impact together. Thank you, and I give you back the floor, Monique.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. I think it was a very, insightful presentation. Of course, we don't have much time, so it's a bit of a challenge to squeeze in a lot of information, but I think we had a very good overview of what are the Digital for Planet Association activities and how actually there's a lot of ignorance in a way about what kind of impact our digital habits can have on the environment. I would like to take the opportunity now that we're back together, first of all, to answer to a question also loud for everyone in case you missed it from the chat. So somebody was asking, Michael, she was asking whether UK-based organization can join the NGI, can participate to the NGI. The answer is yes. All the ongoing NGI projects, the research and innovation actions that have open calls, are funded within the Horizon 2020 context. Thereby, all the UK partners and organizations are eligible for funding. The other point is that, yes, there will be future calls. There will be future NGI calls in the next multi-financial framework launched by the EC for 2021-2027. Of course, due to the pandemic, you might know the budget discussions have been delayed, and there's a sense that the next calls will be pushed out end of Q1 2021. And Next Generation Internet will be part of Cluster 4, in particular of a chapter called Internet of Trust. The details of the calls are not yet known, but of course for the new calls, the new rules of the next MFF will apply. In this case, for UK participants, but also for others like Switzerland and so on and so forth, it will very much depend on the bilateral agreements that will be established by the various governments with the European Commission. So in this case, we don't know yet because these bilateral agreements have not yet been established. And that's why it's still an open question. But looking backward, for instance, I'm talking about the Swiss participants because we are Swiss and we're quite well acquainted with that. There's always been a way that the two governments, I mean, let's say the EC and the Swiss governments managed to ensure participation of the Swiss, whether paid by the national governments or not. And I'm pretty sure that this will happen also for other countries that might qualify either as third party or as associated countries like the UK. Now, let's come back to us, to our discussion. So, especially because we are within the context of the MyData conference, I think one of the points touched by Giovanni, and here I would like, to trigger a bit of discussion here, Giovanni, is of course that a lot of what we do online produces data, whether we are aware or not. And this data production has an environmental impact. I was reading in actually one of the Digital for Planet papers that data traffic is increasing with a rate of 25% on average a year, which correspond to 55% of the annual energy consumption of the whole ICT sector. So it's massive. And recently, the European Commission has published a report on green data centers. If you can give us a little bit of an insight on your view on this report and what are the main highlights and how these are indicating the way in which we should proceed also in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, of course, the increase in data traffic is at the moment a sign of the ongoing digital transformation, and also the need to move the let's say the back end of data intensive systems to more modern infrastructures, and these are usually hosted in data centers. I think that from regulation and adaptation point of view, we will end up with like in other domains, we will end up with a combination of direct to user behavioral change. That's what we have mentioned before with the direct campaigns where we can be aware of our digital life and individually take steps to reduce our impact. So like not keeping all our data forever if we don't need it and so on. But on the other side, so this is like it's righteous effort, but it's never the case that consumer only behavior change can solve this kind of problem. So on the provider side, it is clear that like we have now security standards for data centers and backend system, we are now also in need of guidelines for the environmental specification, the environmental impact of data centers. This is actually one of the major topics on the roadmap for European cloud computing. So at the moment there is this, as I briefly point out in the slides, there is this tension in Europe between fostering diversity and localization of cloud providers, and trying to leverage the economy of scale that makes it so that larger data centers can be made much more efficient in terms of energy consumption, let's say per unit of processing. Okay, so a large data center can be cheaper per CPU than a small one. The other aspect is, of course, where does this energy come from? So one very important way to reduce the impact of data center consumption is to track and incentivize the consumption from renewable resources. So it should be possible at the cloud provider point of view. So the clients of the cloud provider should be able to know, like you can now choose for data privacy reasons in which country or area of the world your data center is located. You should also have the energy profile and the sustainability kind of rating of the data center in terms of where the energy comes from. Second point is, of course, energy efficiency. And this needs to be balanced with the diversity and specialization of the local, let's say, national or regional cloud providers. A way out of this dilemma between should we go monopoly so that there will be only one or two big providers with huge data centers, or should we protect in Europe more the smaller provider? A way out of this dilemma could be edge computing. So with the paradigm of edge computing, or actually cloud edge continuum, where it's not everything is in the data centers, but the processing can be moved closer to the data generation point, this might also help from environmental point of view. Because then you can do what is called as semantic compression. So you try to quickly process the data locally as soon as it's generated, and you only send around to the cloud and store only some specific aggregated data. This should both reduce the energy consumption because there is less data transmission, less storage on the cloud side, and also help with the privacy and data sovereignty aspect. So this is the current situation. So combination between more links to smart grid and energy and renewable energy, let's say, tracking, and cloud edge computing continuum evolution that makes it so that it's not just a scale game where the biggest always is the most efficient, but can be combined in a way that the environmental footprint can be reduced at the source.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. I must say we are running a bit out of time, so thank you very much. I recommend the people in the room to contact directly Giovanni or Digital for Planet in case they are interested, in case they want to continue the discussions. Now, before closing this session, I wanted just to mention a few things about how to join the NGI and get funded. I mentioned already that there are several open calls, and the ones upcoming within the Q1, but even during the whole 2021 from the ongoing projects are more or less known. You can go on the ngi.eu portal and you will see more details. More open calls will also be announced later on. You can meet the NGI and discover more details about the NGI also at next online events. As you know, given the pandemic, most of our events, if not all by now, have moved online. Again, you can find also the calendar of next plans venues in the NGI portal. And finally, you have several ways. You can register to the NGI map, you can join the NGI community platform, you can join the NGI exchange platform and subscribe to the NGI newsletter. All the details can be found online. As you will see, it's a growing community, and the fact that you might become visible in this community will give opportunities also to grow your research and innovation impact within the broader context. So I would like to thank you. Thank you, MyData, for having hosted us today, and wish you a great and productive rest of the MyData 2020 online conference. Thank you, everyone. Bye.